They'll never say it, but a lot of abusers actually come from a mindset of jealousy. It doesn't make sense, I know. I've sat there and been like, I don't understand how they could be jealous of the person they're harming, but let's get into it, okay? Because, first of all, a lot of psychological textbooks, findings, therapists, and psychiatrists' findings all align with this sentiment. So it comes from a lot of research and from personal experience. So, first of all, it's extremely common in abusive dynamics for the abuser to develop jealousy for the victim, especially if there is diagnosed narcissism or narcissistic tendencies involved. But I'm not going to go too far into the narcissistic area just because I think the word is overused and it causes some confusion on social media. So I'm just going to talk about broad abuse. So it is particularly noticed a lot with parental abuse unto a child. Quite often the parent will develop jealous feelings for the child, whether it be because the child's getting attention from the other parent or from other adults, or maybe they're good at something that that parent was insecure of, or whatever it may be. The parent develops almost like a competitive nature with the child and becomes jealous of them, which fuels their abusive tendencies towards the child. Again, it just doesn't make sense, but also it kind of does if you elaborate and look at their behaviors, because a lot of times with abusive parents unto their child, they almost kind of act like a mean girl in high school. And that would make sense if you come to the conclusion that it comes from a jealous nature. Not saying that you can understand why or how somebody could think that, but looking at the intellectual side of jealousy leads to mean girl behavior, that can kind of explain a few things. Also, though, I've noticed it within relationships, so interpersonal relationship violence. So this is going to be like domestic violence. I've noticed it is one partner will become jealous of the other partner. Quite often, it's going to be a dynamic where there's some settling going on, which, let's be honest, with all domestic violence situations, there usually is, because somebody who is an abuser just simply is going to be in a lower league. People who behave like that are just gonna be in a lower league. That's just a fact, okay? And so quite often I think the abuser picks up on that, and I think that they know that there's that league difference, and it leads to some jealousy, right? I think that kind of is what fuels a lot of the controlling behaviors coming from an abuser, because if they felt confident in the dynamic, why would they feel the need to break down their partner's confidence before they go out in public? Quite often, like, what I experienced was a male partner making comments to me about like, oh, like, why are you wearing that? Aren't you going to be insecure of other women when we go out? And like stuff like that, where it was like, he would specifically try to tear me down before going out, which it took me a while to realize that it was because he was jealous of the fact that I got attention when we went out. He was jealous of the fact that when I dressed up and when I walked with confidence, people looked at me. And so typically he would say things like that, and I would change into something less dressed up. I like dressing up. I really do. I dress up to go to the grocery store. And I noticed that pattern after the relationship. Looking back, I was like, oh my goodness, he would do that. So I would wear something less confident, therefore getting less attention from other people when I'd go out. There'd be less stares. Wouldn't eliminate them completely, but it would make it less. And I started to talk to other women and realize, not just women, but like talk to other people and find that this is actually a really common experience in abusive dynamics. Is if you really analyze their behavior, you can easily come to the conclusion that it comes from jealousy. Absolutely, the controlling behavior of who you can go hang out with, who you can be around. Yeah, a lot of it is going to be projection. Even the being insecure about other people staring at the partner, it comes from projection because they're looking at other people, right? Control saying you can't hang out with friends, you can't go out because you'll cheat or something. That's usually coming from projection. But also, there's going to be a part of jealousy playing in it. And I found that in almost every single abusive dynamic, if you sit and break it down and you really look at the details, it just makes sense if you approach it with the assumption that they're jealous of the victim. I can't say for every single situation, but every single one that I have sat and analyzed, it makes sense if you look at it as they are jealous, they have poor emotional regulation skills, don't know how to properly communicate their emotion, therefore they're lashing out like a childhood bully. all of a sudden a lot of stuff makes sense. A lot of stuff makes sense. Again, not saying that their behavior makes sense, but it's just kind of like, when I reflected back on my past and analyzed the abusive behavior of people that I had interacted with, again, whether it was parental abuse or interpersonal relationship, a lot of behavior suddenly just went, oh my God, they were jealous. And I don't know really how to explain that any further, but I know that when I've spoken to other victims about it, suddenly a lot of things clicked for them as well. And it was like, oh my goodness, that's why they wouldn't let you wear certain outfits out in public. It's because they were jealous that you got looks that they didn't. It wasn't just a matter of fact, because of course there's the control factor, but there's also the fact that they view you as a competition. Abusers definitely view their victims as competition. That's something that I see clear as day. And in order for them to view you as competition, they have to be a little jealous. They have to think you're something worthy of competing with. Jealousy. Because the matter of fact is, if they really thought that they were above you, they would feel no need to tear you down. If abusers genuinely thought that they were better than their victims, they would feel no need to control them, no need to tear them down, no need to make them insecure, no need to use any of their abusive tactics. They do so because they genuinely think that you deserve better because you do. And therefore they're jealous that you could get better. So instead of being better, they tear you down to give you the illusion that you're on the same level as them. To give you the illusion that you don't deserve better than what they're offering. To give you the illusion that there isn't better out there. To give you the illusion that that's what's there for you. That's what's meant for you. Just some food for thought. I know that this completely changed the way that I perceived abuse, and it kind of offered me some closure because I was able to shift from, why do they do that? It makes no sense. You know, I used to think, like, with my mother and with, like, you know, one of my exes, it was like, why did they act like a childhood bully? Like, it didn't make sense. And then it clicked when I started to read, there were writings I was reading, articles and research studies written by psychologists. And all of a sudden, it just made sense. I was like, oh my God, they acted like a childhood bully because they were experiencing the same emotionally immature jealousy that a childhood bully feels. And like the childhood bully, with the emotional immaturity and the lack of emotional intelligence, they don't have the readily available tools and knowledge to be able to express it in a healthy way, so they bully you. Not saying that it's appropriate. They're adults. They can go teach themselves. They can do better. But like I said, it starts to explain some things. Yeah, food for thought. Love y'all.